in right away?
So 80 to 100 turbines. The project obeys a project envelope, which is sort of a range of options. The technology moves so fast. You want to allow the project to be able to use the latest technology. So we've got 8 to 10 megawatt turbines that we're permitting, and for 800
to 10.
Yeah, and for 800 megawatts, that would be 80 to 100 turbines. So you're talking about pilings about better part of a little less than a mile apart on average, over a 160,000 acre area, which is about 80.
And then you could, how many could you actually have if all of the leased property was?
So there are three leased areas currently. Two other companies hold leases to two other.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, and then VineyardWind holds a lease area whose capacity is probably about 1,600 megawatts. So we're basically permitting. We have a lease area that's.
Let me ask you, why didn't you guys lease the whole thing and others were involved?
I would say, firstly, the system has been, pretty well developed. There's a competitive aspect of this, and that's for the benefit of the consumer, and it's also for the benefit of the public. The idea of multiple projects in the works. Oh yeah, sure.
I guess so.
Well, so three companies bid into the 83C, the procurement. Massachusetts said, we want 800 megawatts to start. Three companies bid, blind bid. So they're bidding on price.
Right. You pay every year or something. You lease it for.
So there's a lease cost. There's a cost for the lease, but actually to sell the energy, we bid on a per kilowatt hour rate, and we competed with the other companies in a blind. Basically in the best consumer-oriented way, which is each company sort of determining their
and that
lowest cost.
Payment that you're leasing the bottom of the ocean goes to the state or to the federal government?
That goes to the federal government. There is an oceans as we put the transmission infrastructure in, which is a couple of cables about sort of 8-ish inches in diameter. Those are part of an ocean mitigation fee. So the Massachusetts Oceans Management Plan, which actually our former Cape Island Senator Rob O'Leary authored while I was in his office. That establishes that any of these ocean uses comes with a fee, and there's a grading of that. So Massachusetts gets some basic revenue into the state through that process.
Got it. Okay.
But the real benefits here are it's a small portion of the wider project that is.
And then the other guys, do you know what they're doing, or did they get it yet?
I've heard that. So one of the companies is Deepwater, and they actually in the same procurement won a 400
Didn't they try
megawatt
to
bid.
do something before Deepwater?
They did the Block Island five turbine Block Island project.
Yes.
So that was kind of that was the first
Well, that was pretty big. I mean, they learned a lot from that.
Yeah, it was pretty big, and we're about 25 times their size. So when you're talking about 1,600. 800 megawatts is a substantial procurement. It's an ambitious thing. The state it also offers economies of scale. Of course, building that scale thing with the transmission infrastructure, sort of serving 800 megawatts is a real good benefit for the consumer ultimately.
In Denmark, even after this much time, when I was there, they were claiming that it was a good place because it attracted fish. Because you had more obstacles for them to hide, and they could. Yeah, it was like a big giant reef that they could build off.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about habitat. In terms of there has been some clear evidence of habitat benefits, but it's tough to be. We're not in the.
This is where you're going, right?
Yeah. You want to be not. There are some there, and there's actually some motivation to engage those things, but it's not something we want to make as a it's not the primary purpose of the project, and we wouldn't want to go to fishermen and saying, hey, we're creating habitat, so have a nice day. Whenever you're entering into an environment like that obviously to some extent serves fisheries and serves sensitive species.
But it hasn't hurt in Europe.
No, I mean we're talking about, and I'm trying to remember the numbers. Roughly a half acre of scour protection, so cobbles basically we've talked about sort of smaller cobbles and maybe some larger cobbles to the lease very clearly, and it's an important element of this, there are the rights that VineyardWind has to that area is to construct a wind farm for a certain period of time, and then put forth a plan that's vetted by the state and bonded through money to remove the project.
Yes.
At the end of its life.
Right.
Other than that, there's no ability for the company to, or inclination, frankly, for the company to restrict any kind of activity there.
Got it.
Because we're not allowed to do that. It's basically we can build a wind farm and fishing, navigation,
You're not
recreation.
there to kick people off. Or
we're not. Yeah, and we're not able. I mean, the federal government.
Too close to the. But that's what that buffer is,
I think.
right?
Yeah. Well, the reason I discussed that is because you'd think that maybe the fishing might be better nearby, but then you've got a few areas of acres of scour that's going to be
right.
It's a new thing we're doing here.
Yes.
And we're first through the gate, so there's admittedly, going back to permitting, there's a very high bar, and the regulators are committed to getting this one right, and that means that can mean a little bit more.
But it goes back to
detail.
Europe again. I mean, they've been doing it like crazy over there.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
They're unbevillable.
Yeah.
And we're just dragging.
Well,
like.
I hate.
Where do you see the future?
As much as we've dragged,
yeah.
we're benefiting from a kind of a
But I mean, you go to Denmark and they've
now.
got wind turbines on the land. They're everywhere.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. There was a mention about Samsur, which was this island in Denmark, which won a sort of competition to be supported as a net zero emissions island. And when they discussed with the fishermen and the owners on the island, who were sort of had a partnership with this project, they wanted them closer because they said, well, we want to make sure that they're working right. We don't want them all the way far out, so we can't really even
exactly
slightly different.
I mean, it does. Yeah. The further out they are, the more expensive it is to pipe that.
Yeah.
Now, just a couple more things before I let you go. The pipe that's going to come off of that, does that go through the vineyard?
The pipe, meaning the cable,
the
power?
Cable, yeah.
No, so it's going to go in between. It's going to go through Mesquite Channel.
Oh,
so it's going to come, through Mesquite Channel, and then make roughly a due north path skirting the
Yarmouth.
Yarmouth or Barnstable. Those are our two proposed landing
And then it gets
sites.
tied into the grid there?
Gets tied into the grid at Barnstable Switching Station, which is Independence Park, kind of the other side of the...
Is there any kind of building or
No,
processing?
so there's a substation. There's a substation offshore at the edge of the... So there are inter-array cables that feed the power into a substation. That substation processes the power, essentially, for passing.
We're going to... Oh, yeah.
He's just going to be a minute, and then we need to pull back.
Thanks, Harvey.
Yeah.
So that infrastructure is offshore. Yeah, sure.
So that's cool. Now, a little bit about you. What are you doing?
My biggest exposure to Nantucket was coming out here for soccer games when I was in high school.
Well, who'd you play for?
I played for Provincetown. I was from Provincetown.
Oh,
born and raised. Yeah. So it's fun. It's great to come out here because we feel the uniqueness of living on this peninsula with one little access kind of isolated. And Nantucket is kind of a kindred spirit in that, although the challenges, of course, in terms of being connected to the mainland are a little bit bigger out here.
Yeah. And this job of yours, you said you were involved.
So yeah, I was
on the other side.
Yep, involved in
not doing the same thing.
Well, involved in I worked for Congressman Delahunt for a little while, and did some bunch of campaign work on the Cape and political stuff. And several.
So you like politics?
I wouldn't say I like it. I enjoy the. No, I mean it's frustrating at times, but it is ultimately it's a challenge, but it's the way that good outcomes can occur ultimately. But it's again, sometimes you feel like you're.
So after you leave Nantucket, then what do you have to do? What's your next thing that you guys need to go to? Or
the outreach portion of this thing is, if you want to talk about lessons learned from Cape Wind, involving communities is a big deal,
sure.
and connecting with the communities that are affected. So I mean, the structure here was that the people drive the process.
Yeah.
And
you're not so much worried about here because they can't see it too much unless they go to Madigan.
Yeah, it's a whole different game from Cape Wind.
But
which is
believe me, if they could see it, you'd be hearing about it.
Sure.
Because we tried to put one. You knew probably we tried to put one at the dump.
Yes, yeah, I've heard
people
rumors.
Just went crazy.
Yeah, I've heard rumors. Well, I'm one of the people that discusses that a little differently to folks in terms of the nature of islanders, the nature of people on the Cape is we
What is it? How's it different?
We're very protective of our local environment, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. But the things that we have achieved in terms of local environmental protections, Massachusetts, but also the Cape has really driven a lot of the wetlands protection stuff and a lot of the attention to sensitive species. The other side of the coin is a reticence to pursue those necessary projects, or at least a skepticism. And I think it's not to be dismissed. So learning from an earlier project, don't dismiss it. Understand it,
right,
and also welcome people as partners in the project.
I totally agree with you. At the same time, I think that we could be a little bit more proactive in learning from other people. For some reason, this country has this idea where if we don't figure it out ourselves, it's probably not worth it or something. Because, I mean, for 20 years they've been going hog wild. I went to the Vespa. They gave me a tour of that.
Vestas?
Vestas.
Yeah.
Vestas plant, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah, well,
By the way, where are we getting our blades, and are we?
The two main providers are Siemens and Vestas.
Okay.
And there's a strong impetus to do as much of
Danes.
Strong impetus to do as much of that work.
Well, that's part of the project. I mean, they're putting
Mass.
the money up, right? These guys are half of the money is coming from their retirement funds.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
we'll see it. So the project would have to contract with one of those companies,
which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you can count on them. They're the ones that have built the technology.
Right, and that's the
spent the money on.
That's always the balance. But the hope is really to anchor an industry here, because there's a lot of there's a lot of bandwidth, of course, to sort of pursue the technological side, the engineering side, and the construction side locally. So there's one of the other elements of this, both for community benefit and for project benefit, is sourcing local labor.
What kind of jobs will we see?
Well, there's a range of construction related marine trade construction, but then you've got so much more marine species observers who are typically working in fisheries.
Okay.
You've got any range of marine tradesmen, captains, and deck people. I mean, the boat infrastructure is pretty impressive. There's the welding jobs. There's very specialized stuff. We're trying to get ahead of that because, again, I have a lot of friends who went to Mass Maritime, and they all go to California and the Gulf because that's where the jobs are.
But this would create, just the steady jobs that we could talk about, maintaining these turbines.
Sure, yeah.
Do you know how many jobs?
They're saying as far as the formal operations and maintenance, about 100 jobs, like sort of in-house. Mm-hmm. There's ancillary pieces all around that, and there's a sort of job creation factor or whatever. But that's the first piece, and that's jobs for 25, 30 years that are I think something like 60% above median income of southeastern Mass and Cape Cod. But then the construction churn is important. We're talking about thousands of jobs, and the expectation, of course, is that as we continue in future procurements, anchoring this industry that may service the entire East Coast, anchoring it in southeastern Mass, so that again, Mass Maritime and the trade schools are pipeline. It's exciting.
I'm all for it, man.
We gotta.
I've been for it from the minute I put my head to it and started thinking about the benefits.
Yeah.
And they're coming through. It's starting to look that way. We got a lot to do.
America is sometimes slower to things maybe than we should be, but we also have a knack for getting things right sometimes.
Yeah.
I think this is a scenario, and Massachusetts as well. We've developed a range of sort of clean energy policies that are functioning a lot better than other states. We're doing the work.
And we have so much technology. The brains.
I know. Yet again, everyone talks about how computers were invented in Cambridge and Boston, and they shipped them all to Silicon Valley. So this time we want to.
And we got the Celtics, the Red Sox, and the Patriots, and the Bruins.
Yeah.
Come on, we're the top.
Well, yeah.
For a little state.
Yeah. Well,
I always tell the big ones that. I like to rub it in.
Oh, I bet you get New Yorkers in here, I'm sure, and it's.
You better believe it.
We're on pace to maybe break that single season wins record. So we'll see if the Sox can make waves.
All right. Well, listen. Good to meet you.
Excellent
Nate.
talking to you.
Right.
Yeah. I encourage folks to reach out to pick us up on the web. My email's on there, and we're always happy to chat.
We'll do that.
All right, great.
You have a good day.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right.
And here's your phone here too, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Make sure to lose that.